If you finally want to get ahead in your career, there's one critical thing that you need to start doing and doing more frequently, and that's being selfish. You heard that right. You actually have to start putting yourself first in your career, and I'm going to explain exactly what this means and how you can start doing it. Hey everybody, and welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, my name is Bryan. I'm the founder of A Life After Layoff, a career strategist and a corporate recruiter, and I've made it my mission to demystify how careers and job search works at major corporations. So if this kind of content interests you, make sure you hit the subscribe button. You may also want to hit the notification bell so you don't miss any future content. And if you're tired of employers holding all of the cards in the employment arrangement, it's time for you to reclaim control in your career. And if you're not sure how to do this, I've created a free 1.5-hour webinar which walks you through the exact process for starting to reclaim power in the dynamic, from job search all the way through getting promoted. So if you're feeling stuck in your career, you're feeling stuck in a job search, this is the webinar for you. And if you'd like to get signed up, again, it's absolutely free, and I will leave a link in the video description below. In my career coaching practice, I've had the privilege of speaking to thousands of people across all walks of life, all levels of organizations, all points in their career, and across all different kinds of professions. And one of the most consistent themes that I see from people who are struggling to get ahead, whether it's the job search process or if it's getting promotions or moving up in organizations, it centers around the idea of being selfish, or rather the lack thereof. We are taught that selfishness is a bad trait, that it's something that you should avoid, and if you want to be the best possible version of yourself, you should be the one giving out instead of taking. But in the context of careers, being the person who is always giving out and never receiving is often the recipe for career stagnation at best and career frustration and burnout at worst. And so I'm going to urge those of you who actually care about your career. I'm not really talking about the people who just sit around complaining all the time. But if you actually care about heading somewhere in your career, it's time for you to start being more selfish. And when I say you're not selfish enough at work, what do I mean? You're a people pleaser. You have a hard time saying no to anybody, in particular your boss, and you tend to take on everybody else's burdens around you. And you get passed by for promotion because you're too quiet, too nice, and quite frankly, nobody knows who you are. And you say things like, crap, well, maybe next time. But deep down, you know that's not the case because you've been passed by for the last 6 promotions, and they always use the same excuse. Try harder next time. There's a few things you need to work on, but eventually you'll get there. And let's face it, you never really do anything about it until you're forced to through an involuntary layoff. And the bottom line is this is a form of career abuse. We're too nice. We're too enabling. We're not aggressive enough. We let others walk all over us. We let companies dictate when we get hired, where we move to, how we live our lives. And when we do things that actually matter, we let others take the credit for it while we sit back and say, hey, wait a minute, that was my idea. Now, in the context of an effective career, being selfish is an art form. There's a right way and a wrong way to do it. So let's define the 2 types of selfishness that you'll see in a corporate setting. But before we get into that, I want to introduce the sponsor of today's video, DeleteMe. If you're applying to a lot of jobs, you're often giving out your personal information in the form of job applications. There's a lot of personal indicators in there. Addresses, email, contact information, potentially even some really sensitive things like social security numbers. The problem is when those companies use those applications, they're often conducting background checks from the information you provide. Those background checks are often conducted by a third party, and some of those third parties make your information available for resale, and it can be very difficult to get your information scrubbed off the internet. But fortunately, a company like DeleteMe makes this process very easy. And they go out and start looking for instances where your personal information is showing up on public directories, etc. And they take proactive steps to opt your name and your contact information out for you. And getting signed up is really easy. You just have to fill out this basic questionnaire so they know what to look for, and then they get hard to work scrubbing your information. And every so often, they're going to send you a detailed privacy report where they show you all the instances that they found where your information is showing up and then the activities they're doing to remove it on your behalf. If you'd like to get started in protecting your own data, they've been very gracious to offer a 20% off discount if you use the code LAYOFF at sign up. So get started today by visiting joindeleteme.com/layoff, or you can click the QR code that's on this screen. So what does effective selfishness look like in your career? Well, for starters, and the most important thing, it ultimately means that you're making decisions that are in your best interest first. Now, keep in mind, this doesn't automatically mean that it's going to be in direct conflict with what the company's best interests are, but you're taking your own needs into account before anybody else's are met. Because in the context of a career, you have to put yourself in the driver's seat. Otherwise, somebody else will be happy to do it for you. And as we've learned in the last 5 years, loyalty does not exist in the corporate environment anymore. So just a couple quick examples of what that might look like. It may mean that you're being selective in the types of projects that you're getting involved in. So if they're looking for committees to fill, and one of them's the birthday party committee, it's not to say that that's not important, but that's probably not the one that I would opt for. But rather, I might get involved in that new strategic project where they're implementing a new system, and you're going to be working directly with a senior leader. That's better for my career. Or it might mean declining that transfer that they're asking you to take because they need somebody to fill a gap somewhere in a remote office, even though it's not part of your long-term career plan. I want to put a little asterisk here. Any selfish decision that you make also needs to be made with a high degree of strategy, because the wrong decision, even if it's in your best interest, could actually hurt your long-term career. So if you taking on this other branch for a period of time means that you're going to be able to retain your job, and by staying in your existing job and declining the transfer means you're going to get laid off, and it might be in your best interest to take a job that's not in your best interest, if that makes sense. And being selfish requires you to advocate for yourself often and loudly. And this means that you're promoting yourself. You're speaking about your career wins, and you're not letting other people take credit for your work. So if you find yourself in situations where the boss likes to sit in these board meetings taking all the credit for the hard work that you've done or the innovative ideas you've brought forward, you need to figure out a way to hard bake your name into the work, whether it's through the reporting, whether it's through back channeling, some way to get your word out back to the senior leadership team, who will know that you've actually done all the hard work and bring the innovation forward. It also means being competitive in the job market, both inside of your company and externally. Now, this has to be done with strategy. Doesn't mean that you're going to go off and take any job that comes your way, but rather you're taking the right job, but you're being aggressive. You're being very competitive about it. You want that job over those other people, and you're not going to lay back and let somebody else take the job who is less qualified than you simply because they know how to speak better. Learn those skills. And here's a hint. Marketing yourself is something that you can develop. Don't let that be your excuse. But you don't want to let other people take your job opportunities away from you because you weren't aggressive enough. This is the time to be selfish. And as a result of that, it means you're going to have to take action, even if sometimes it means that you're going to let somebody down. Whether it's a boss that you're particularly loyal to because they gave you your first opportunity, or it's a teammate that you're working closely on a project with and they're relying on you to deliver your side of things, but you get a better opportunity somewhere else. And here's a little hint. Those retention bonuses that companies often dangle on people to get them to stick around for a period of time often aren't as lucrative as the opportunities they'd be passing by. So if those are some examples of what good selfishness looks like in your career, what about some examples of what it's not? And if you operate with integrity, that's the foundation here. What it isn't is acting like a psychopath. In other words, I'm never making decisions that put myself first if they directly hurt somebody else for me to get ahead. So if my actions directly harm, or I'm throwing somebody else under the bus so that I look better to somebody else, that shows a lack of integrity, and that's not the kind of selfishness that I'm referring to. You also have to be careful about making money the only motivator, because selfishness and money tend to go hand in hand. But the money isn't necessarily the direct motivator for me if I'm operating from a place of positive selfishness. Sure, without a doubt, the money needs to make sense. That goes without saying. But the ultimate litmus test for me on an opportunity is it in alignment with my long-term direction? And of course, the ultimate form of selfishness is taking all the cake in the break room and not leaving any for anybody else. Now, here's the thing about selfishness that most people are going to get wrong. They think that they can just start operating with a degree of selfishness in their career when they've never demonstrated this before, and think that it's going to be effective or not harm them. You have to be careful here. You can't be truly selfish in a good way if you don't have power in your career. There's a long process to positive selfishness, and it's not something that you just flip a switch on. It requires you to have a long-term strategy. You have to know what it is that you're trying to accomplish in your career. Then you have to start acquiring the right skills and experiences that people actually value and demand. It also means that you have to stop being a chump and stop saying yes to everything. Now, here's the thing. You can't truly be selfish in a good way if you lack power in the employment dynamic. If you solely rely on them or need their paycheck in order to survive, you are going to be forced into being a career chump on some level. That's just the reality of it. The first thing you need to do is actually have a strategy. You have to know what it is that you're trying to accomplish in your career. Again, if you're not sure how to do this, check out the free webinar that I left at the top of this video. Then you need to acquire the right skills and then start to promote yourself so that people know who and what you are, what you're capable of, and what you're delivering. And next, you need to learn how to stop being such a chump. Start learning how to say no and pushing back on certain things. Don't accept every piece of work that comes across your desk if it's cluttering things up and not truly adding value. Learn how to take credit for the work that you produce and start having a voice. If you're somebody that just sits in the back of the room at every major training event or every staff meeting and never speaks up, you got to start changing that dynamic. Finally, you need to advocate for yourself. Let the decision makers know what your intentions are and what value you bring. And if they can't get you where you need to go, then sometimes it means making more difficult decisions that are in the best interest of your long-term career, but you have to do it smart. So in a nutshell, that's what positive selfishness looks like in a career context. It doesn't mean that you're the corporate a-hole that everybody hates because you're stepping on people to get ahead, but rather you're doing it in a productive way that places your priorities above the company's needs. And hopefully they're both synergistic. If you're stuck in your career or a job search that's particularly difficult, it's exactly what I specialize in. I've got a website called alifeafterlayoff.com, which is loaded with tips and tricks, all from a recruiting insider's perspective. And if you need more personalized career strategy, I do offer some limited one-on-one coaching, and you can sign up through my website for that as well. Anyway, hopefully you found this video to be of use. Go out there and start being a little bit more selfish in your career, and hopefully that will unlock some doors for you. Again, I'd like to thank today's sponsor, DeleteMe. Appreciate you watching. We'll see you on the next one.